Welcome, everybody, to our weekly democracy meeting. If this is your first time with us, we are DemCast USA. We are a 501c4 social advocacy group, and our goal is to help win the digital war against disinformation online, and to be a permanent infrastructure on the left for volunteers, campaigns, candidates, educating people about how to use your personal social media account for good. And tonight, we are excited to have a special guest with us. We know that the people's attack on reproductive rights and women's health care is under attack in the US, particularly in red states. I'm in Tennessee, and they're currently trying to ban all abortions here, and it will probably go into effect. So I know that's happened in Texas, and many other states are thinking about that. So we're excited tonight to have Amy Merrill with us. She is the co-founder and digital director of Plan C, which is an information campaign transforming access to abortion in the US by normalizing the self-determined method of abortion pills by mail. She started the digital campaign in 2015 with 3 public health researchers under a vision that untangled this safe, modern medication from politics and repositioned it to where it has always belonged, in the hands of the people who need it. Today, the website and guide has been visited by millions and was featured in nearly 200 press articles in the past year, as well as being shared by folks like AOC as a resource. Amy has a background in building impact startups, nonprofits, and brands around a more equitable options for our future. She's also an artist and musician. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much, Lori. Thank you, Jamie, also for having me. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's a real honor to be able to share this information with this group. Thank you. I see I've received the spotlight. Great. Well, I'm going to start by giving just a bit of background. This is often new news to folks, and we can talk about why that might be. But as Lori mentioned, I am the co-founder and digital director of Plan C, and we are all about sharing information on abortion pills and also how people are already accessing them through the mail and with telehealth from all across the country. So really what I'm here to share is that at the same time that these laws are being passed, that Lori referenced, that folks are chatting about in the chat, that politicians are decimating access to abortion, there is hope. And it's that abortion pills are changing the landscape of access across this country. Now, is this a complete solution with a bow on top? It's of course not. It's complicated. There's a lot of nuance. We're going to get into some of the details today so that you feel like you have your questions answered and can go out and share information yourself. But first, a little bit of background about this method. It's also called medication abortion, and it's 5 pills. It's 2 different types of medication. 1 pill is taken, and then the other 4 are taken 24 to 48 hours later. They're taken up to 11 weeks after a potential pregnancy. And this method has been around for 2 decades, and it has that amount of time backing its safety and effectiveness with research and with documentation and with practices that over and over again have shown that it's just as safe for someone to use it on their own with the proper information and with knowing who to call or when to call, knowing all of the usage guidelines around this medication. It is proven just as safe to use on your own. And that's how it's used both in this country right now and also all around the world by millions of people each year. So why is it news? Why don't we know about this? Really so much has changed in just the last 2 years during the pandemic. And even if this method has been in Planned Parenthood and clinics and by a select number of providers, it's a complicated process to get registered, sorry, not a complicated process, but providers do need to get registered to give this particular medication, which is part of the barriers to access. But during the pandemic, as the FDA lifted its restrictions on mifepristone, one of the two medications, we saw telehealth startups pop up in half of the country where it was immediately possible. And so right now, this kind of modern telehealth option has taken off in half the country, providing the fast, convenient home delivery that folks are looking for, often at a much lower cost. And then in states where politicians have blocked access to this kind of telehealth abortion, we're also seeing activist physicians and online pharmacies creating new routes of access under essentially a human rights and equity lens, the idea that your zip code should not determine your options to abortion care. And so the Plan C website for the last 5 years has served as a resource, a directory of information addressing all 50 states and helping people to understand what's available in their state, as well as nationwide medical and legal hotlines that are free for individual support, free to call up and ask specific situations about your particular situation. As well as on our website, we compile all sorts of FAQs and sort of basic information like what I started by talking about, so that an individual can make steps in making a decision that's best for them. You know, when we think about the politics of this and we think about risk, we don't want to control or decide what information a certain person gets to have access to. We want to share everything that we know in a comprehensive, freedom of speech, information sharing way, so that someone can then go down to each of these resources and assess their own needs and make a decision that's best for them. So this is how we've been operating, really under the idea that we want to bring this option into the mainstream, like it is in so many other countries around the world. And we know that this coming year, we'll see even more of these harmful political barriers, including potentially very substantial changes to Roe v. Wade and the constitutional protections that have been in place until now, which is why spreading the word, what you all are here to do today and what you do so well, that's why it's more important than ever at this moment in time. I'm going to pause and just check the chat, make sure. Okay, great. Thank you. And yes, please put your questions in the chat as we go. We will have time to address them. So yes, and I'll specifically talk about Texas. I see that's come up in the Q&A, and I know that's something that made a lot of news and is still very much a situation in Texas. So first, I want to mention, from a justice lens, we believe no one should be criminalized for their pregnancy outcomes or healthcare decisions in any form. And yet we know that especially marginalized communities are more at risk of criminalization for all kinds of reasons, which is why our site includes some context around legal and links out to resources like the Repro Legal Helpline, which is the free service I mentioned that will answer someone's questions if they sit in a state where the laws are intentionally confusing and designed to block access for political reasons. At Plan C, we also work by partnering with other organizations and reproductive health organizations, as well as with companies and brands to develop simple, effective communications campaigns for their own communities, like what we're doing here today, figuring out what is the most impactful way for this information to go out there. And you all know your communities best, your networks best. So I'm here to get your questions answered and make sure you have the facts about abortion pills by mail. And then we're going to put some tools in your hands. So as we do this, we really take a lot of care to recognize that difference I mentioned between half the country, which currently has modern telehealth options. You can look on our site, but it's things like Abortion on Demand is serving 22 states from one startup. Hey Jane is in 3 states. MyChoice.co is in California. And then the rest of the country experiencing these blocks from politicians, from politics, they still have access via alternative means. And that's something that we document on the Plan C site as well is that we know that people in those states are accessing abortion pills by mail, and they're doing it through services like aidaccess.org, which is a human rights-based organization based over in Europe, run by a doctor who has been on a mission to ensure access for folks all around the world for a decade plus. And so in answer to your question about Texas, what we know about Texas is that even as SB8 came down and blocked local providers and clinics from being able to give an abortion after 6 weeks, after, this kind of heartbeat law idea, which I will mention too, you can look that up, but even the name of it is a misnomer. You can read about what is actually a heartbeat law talking about. It's talking about electrical pulses in a cluster of cells. And so you can see the kind of power of language that's used in these kind of situations. We know that people in Texas are going online to find their care. Now, again, it's not a perfect, it's a very imperfect solution. There's folks who need in-person care. But for the majority of early pregnancy terminations, it's totally safe and effective to be doing this at home with abortion pills. And so folks are going online to online pharmacies, to places like Aid Access to find their care. And in a state like Texas, and again, I'm not a lawyer, this is my understanding of having read a whole lot and talked to many, many people about this law. And in a state like Texas with a law like SB8, it's not actually targeting the pregnant person. And so this person is able to go online and find the care they seek. The law is targeting the various systems around the pregnant person, the helpers and the providers and clinics and things like that. So we feel it's really important in this time, in this chapter where we're seeing all of these laws come down, blocking access to care. It's also really important to understand, what are those laws? What do these restrictions actually say, and who are they targeting? So that our party, so that the progressive side is not like swinging so far in the other direction that they are actually self-censoring or shutting down access preliminarily because they just don't understand the law, and they're just gonna. It's called I've heard it called the chilling effect. It's like you're gonna stop talking about it before the law is even targeting specific groups or even shutting down access, because the point of the law is fear, and the fear is real, and the fear is justifiable. So there's some nuance around a place like Texas. Let's see, I'm just going to check in with the text. Yeah, I know. It's awful. I want to honor that too. The situation is really really extreme, and it's really harmful, right? It's these laws in these particular states are really harmful. And so I want to make sure that that's coming through in my message too. There is possibility around the Plan C message. There is hope. There is, again, part of an answer. If people know about this option, they know where to go, they know where to find what they need, and they're able to make this decision that's best for themselves. It's just a really important thing for folks to know about right now. And of course, there is major systemic change that needs to happen. There is major community care, that needs to rally around people as these laws come down. So, Plan C, we really see the abortion issue as much larger, I would say, than just this one particular reproductive health decision. The conservative side has done a really good job of, I would say, controlling the message around abortion and really wrapping it up in a lot of morality, a lot of stigma. And what we're also trying to do at Plan C is sort of unravel that message, to destigmatize it, and to really address the core need here. It's a systemic question. It's whether a community, a society, not only cares for someone in their full journey of reproductive health and all the decisions they might make at any point in that journey. But also we see it as a question of who gets to be free, right? Who gets to make this decision? And as usual, these kinds of restrictions and barriers, as I mentioned, disproportionately impact people of color, marginalized communities, rural and low income individuals. So this method has the potential to be truly transformative. The broader solution to abortion access is one that does require policy change. It requires grassroots action. It requires community care in all these forms, and really being unapologetic and uncompromising in what we demand for our people who have uteruses in this entire country. And alongside of that, knowing about abortion pills as a safe, effective method, knowing about where people are finding them, knowing about how people are using them to safely end an early pregnancy at home, and all of the resources that are available to people right now already is truly a transformative part of the solution. So I'm so grateful that you're here today. I want to share a quick animation just to kind of sum this up. And let's see, let me get my screen sharing going. Okay. This is an animation we made last year. It's just about 40 seconds long. So let me close this.
What if there was a modern way to safely and affordably end an early pregnancy at home? There is. In countries around the world, people are picking up abortion pills from pharmacies or ordering them through the mail and taking them at home, all for under $100. After decades of political restrictions, some medical professionals in the U.S. are finally providing telemedicine and mail options, making safe, self-managed abortion more accessible. In the modern world, a late period doesn't need a doctor's office or a clinic visit. It just requires 5 little pills. Visit plancpills.org to learn more.
And I want to also address the cost question here in the Q&A. Thank you so much for that. We do think a lot about the cost of these services as we think about the equity issues around abortion access. And yes, there are groups that are covering costs right now, that are offsetting costs. A lot of these providers that have come to market are actually providing sliding scale, which is a big it's really important. As you check out with their services, there will be a sliding scale option, or you can say how much you're able to pay, and the provider has access to charitable funding to fill in the rest. Those systems also aim to be really destigmatized just in that process, that, instead of having to justify your need or make an argument for why you need your cost covered because this and that in your life, it's just no questions asked. What can you pay? What are you comfortable paying? This company or this provider will fill in the rest. There's also, we're starting to see with the larger abortion funds that they're covering abortion pills by mail. Each one is kind of a case by case. So we basically advise people to always ask the question, always as they're contacting services, ask, is there a sliding scale available or financial aid available for this service? But if you have questions about donating to particularly that part of it, I can leave my information in the chat too. And there's starting to be some really interesting options for donating, particularly to abortion pills by mail. Jeffrey asks, is there out-of-state telehealth available? Yeah, so to describe a little bit more the systems that are happening, right now, telehealth abortion is available in all the states where there are no...
Our country is in a choice crisis with an administration...
There's another animation I can show you. Actually, well, yeah, we'll see if we get there. So doctors need to be licensed in the states where they are operating. Medical providers and doctors can't just do telehealth in a state that has bans against telehealth, if that makes sense. So that's where these laws are getting hung up, is that there are many, many states right now that have bans on any number of the aspects that we're talking about, bans on specifically telehealth abortion, bans on abortion access after a certain number of weeks, bans on providing abortion care in certain ways. And so basically, we're seeing providers and clinics and services start to address this from all angles in any way they can. And then there are still states that just have bans, and that's where we know that folks are looking at these alternative methods of access, like services like aid access. And again, people just need to, there are so many factors of consideration when someone is making this decision, that we're really invested in understanding and continuing to research and build information around this full decision that someone's making, as they consider their financial situation, their relationship situation, their living situation, their, what they want for family planning, et cetera, and then also their legal consideration, like what they need to know about the state they're in. Like, there's so many decisions that a person is making. It's already so stressful. There's so much to think about, and so hence the reason for these particular services like the MA hotline and the Reaper Legal Helpline, to help people understand what they need to be considering. And yeah, telehealth providers are just offering really streamlined modern care in half the country. And I think, yeah, we'll see what happens as things continue to change. I just think there's so many medical providers who are so dedicated to care and to finding ways to step up and connect people to the services they need. And I think it's like a galvanizing moment. As and when things change later this year, it's going to be some sort of galvanizing moment for folks who work specifically on abortion care. Looking at, yes. So can Planned Parenthood have any involvement? Okay, so Planned Parenthood is, as you probably know, it's an affiliate model. There's national, and then there are state-by-state Planned Parenthoods. And so what we're seeing from the Plan C campaign is various Planned Parenthoods starting to offer telehealth and mail pills and give this kind of care in the states that they're able. And we're seeing these local affiliates, really ready, really seeing the opportunity, seeing the benefits of it, seeing the need for this sort of blended model where some people want to come in, need to come in, and then many people are able to be served by telehealth. And so it seems like in all the places where they're thinking about it and that they have the opportunity to do it without any of these barriers in place, then they are stepping up and offering telehealth. They're contacting Plan C to ask their services to be added to the guide. And then again, in states where politics are blocking this particular kind of service or blocking access, the Planned Parenthood, because it's part of such a large organization, because decision making is probably so nuanced and there's so much to consider, the Planned Parenthoods in the states with these kinds of blocks just can't do telehealth, can't do it right now. And so that's where these other alternative methods, I'll mention the way that this started with the Plan C guide was that we started to, we had started the website basically to share information about this method, because we realized so many people didn't understand it and didn't understand that it could be, that there was a sort of self-determined version of it that was happening already all around the world. And then we saw things start to change in that we saw online pharmacies popping up that were selling abortion kits. And you can still see on our website, if you search a state, and I recommend you to go to plancpills.org and search your state or search other states that you're curious about and see all the options that are available. And some of those will be online pharmacies. And these are pharmacies that are selling what they call abortion kits, or selling the medication. And we research and test those sites. We, when we originally did it, we were testing the pills and making sure that they were real. There's concern about that. And so we believe that that's going to continue to be a way that people get access to medication abortion as the politics of it continues to erode. Not only, kind of telehealth model, provider-based service, but also these online pharmacies in tandem with the medical hotlines, the resources that exist, so that someone knows how to use this method safely and what to be on the lookout for. Thank you for the donate link, and yes, thank you for sharing all these links. Let me see if I know we're coming up on time. Oh, if a woman misses a period, as a false pregnancy test, and takes the pill regimen, are there any side effects? There will be side effects, but the risk is very low. It will be a sort of like uncomfortable and maybe turns out unnecessary process of having, heavy cramping, heavy period, going through the process. The medication basically blocks the pregnancy hormone, and then the second one evacuates the uterus. So it's going to be going through the whole medication abortion process, but it is not medically risky. And so there is a lot of conversation in the movement around that idea about taking it early, and one of the things that we learn from the research is that if a person realizes they're pregnant, they're going to take, and they don't want to be pregnant, they're going to take care of it as early as they can. And that really goes against this narrative of, late term abortions and just the whole story around like kind of the horrific imagery and all the things about late term. That's such a small percentage of the actual abortions that are had in this country. And again, it's been sort of swept up in creating a picture and creating a particular narrative around anti-choice. All right. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing the link to the posts. There's a nice variety of posts in here. Really recommend that you spend time with it and figure out what feels good to you. I've been really heartened by the last 6 months of seeing people all across my life, so many people posting about abortion access on social media and sharing things out with their friends. It feels like something is really finally clicking for people as they realize what this means, and if it goes away, what kind of impact that will have. And so we tried to give a whole set of options so that you can really find one that feels good to you. It feels like comfortable to say, wow, look what I just learned. Look what I think everyone should know about. It really is just about spreading the information that this is a real method. It's available. There's considerations, and there's a place to start at Plan C Pills, which is a nonprofit directory of information to help you kind of navigate this decision. And if you don't need it, who knows who in your life might need it now or in the future. So it really is about like seeding this information so that it's out there, it's understood, it's part of our culture. It's not, hidden away or confusing. It's just kind of a part of the information that we know about how to take care of our bodies. Yeah, and Sarah, I will just say, in the chat, we can't go backward. I remember what it's like before Roe v. Wade. That is where our hope comes from with this method, is that we don't believe in going back to what was a, back alley abortion or coat hanger abortion. We don't think that it's just not going to be the case because this method is so safe and effective, and because it's available online. We think that it's more, there's more risk around all the other things we're talking about than there is about the method itself and people actually being safe and well if they choose to move forward with ending a pregnancy at home. Thank you, Kim, for posting already. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I'm gonna put our general info at plancpills.org reaches my team. And oops, that was just to the hosts and panelists. Try again to everyone. And please don't hesitate to get in touch if you have an idea, if you have a follow-up question. We're here. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Jamie. Is there anything else I can do to support your community right now?
Well, thank you for sharing that information. I think it's really critical for people to understand what options there are out there. And I think it's super helpful for, I'm sure we all know people that need access to that information. And knowing that it's there and easily, we're able to navigate it easily, that is, I think, extremely helpful. So very excited to understand more about that. There was a question in the chat, I'm not sure if you saw, about how early you can take the pill, and basically how long you can use it. So if you want to maybe quickly address that.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. So in terms of the simple end of the question is it's recommended up to 11 weeks. So after last menstrual period, and that's the, the couple weeks after that, it's not that it like suddenly becomes super dangerous or stops working or anything. That's just the recommendation for self-managed use and guidance around that. And then in terms of how early, so right, you've probably read in these articles about something like a 6-week ban, that it's so problematic because that's right about when someone might even realize that they missed their period.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of thinking around, could we, could we call this a missed period pill, or could we, introduce this method as like, take it as early as you can, and you don't even really need to know if you're pregnant. Like was mentioned about what if you're not pregnant. There is a little bit of research around that it might not be as effective if it is super early, right? Because the pregnancy sort of needs to take hold in your body and the medication needs to be able to work. But again, most people, if they don't want to be pregnant, they're going to take care of it as soon as they realize it's an issue. And so the thinking is like, take it early, and that's probably not going to be, it's probably, it's unlikely that it's going to be too early, because again, you're probably going to get to week 5 or 6, and then realize you hadn't had a period and realize, oh, I need to figure this out. And then if you choose to take the medication abortion, then that's right in the window that is, most effective, that kind of 7 to 10 weeks. And again, I really want to emphasize too, there are some incredible medical providers out there right now who are offering their knowledge and information and support for free. The mahotline.org, I should put that in the chat if it hasn't gone in the chat yet. mahotline.org is also a really strong resource to share with people, because it can be just a starting point for someone having these kinds of questions, and they can call up and they can speak to a medical provider and say, here's where I'm at, here's what I'm experiencing, here's what I want for my outcomes, and that provider can help them navigate. Great. So there's the answer on the timing, and then a little bit more around the support that's available.
Excellent. And I would just want to point out that before Roe v. Wade, people who had money, and particularly wealthy white women, could always get a safe abortion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
These laws don't target abortion; they target poor people, and impact people of color even more. So, when you see that sort of the heartbeat bill, you can't have a heartbeat if there's no heart. There's no heart at 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. It hasn't formed yet. So, when we think about fighting disinformation, that's the sort of thing we need to talk about, is how do we fight back against some of these, ridiculous claims on the right. And, they want to use the most inflammatory language that they can. And we're talking about, a skin cell that you would have scraped under your fingernail and flicked it away. That's not the same as killing a baby. So.
And we also need to call out the Republicans for their pro-life when they're not really pro-life, because they're voting against measures that would actually help women.
Right.
of increasing, food stamps and daycare and education and all of those things that Democrats are fighting for, Republicans are fighting against,
Right.
which would help women, who maybe want to have the baby, but they don't feel like they're financially able to.
Right.
So I'm so glad you brought back up the disinformation, because if we do have a few more minutes, I should mention this whole fake clinics and crisis pregnancy center situation. Again, I don't know if this is on people's radars, but there are thousands of crisis pregnancy centers in this country right now, which are health clinics that don't provide abortion, and they actually steer people out. They have volunteers or employees there that try to steer people out of their abortion decision and, shame them and confuse them, and then possibly delay their timing until they are no longer in early term and have a harder time accessing care overall. So that's something that we think about too. I'm going to put a campaign in the chat. Exposefakeclinics.com is a campaign that is giving people some tools to push back against these fake clinics. They're also this kind of strategy is also being employed with something like the abortion reversal pill, which is not a medically or scientific thing. It's another kind of tactic that the messaging is that if someone took the first abortion pill, but they suddenly regret their decision, or they realize they actually wanted to keep the baby because they're going to be a bad person for having this abortion, that they could take this other medication or reverse the abortion. That's just not the case. It's not documented. It's not proven. It's a tactic. So thank you for mentioning the disinformation, because I think there is also a lot of opportunity to set the record straight, so to speak, to call out crisis pregnancy. So think about what their acronym is, CPCs. CPCs and fake clinics get a ton of federal funding, and also local and state funding. And how problematic is that? If we can't even fund these other kinds of care, and we can't fund abortion in certain areas, certain states, but we are funding CPCs. It's a big problem. Tavia says Ohio's full of fake care pregnancy clinics. It is exhausting.
I'm really just looking at this page. I really love the review a fake clinic online. All of us could jump on and explain to people what this clinic is really about. So that's a nice way to fight back against this kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very creative tactic.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's even been a tactic used in the fighting against Russia, is going on and reviewing their businesses, their sample posts on what you can put in businesses in Russia to tell Russians what are going on.
How funny. Yep, we're definitely in a new cyber warfare reality. So, well, thank you, Amy. We appreciate you so much. Again, we'll continue to share from the toolkit and get that information out there. And it's really important information.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to you both.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. Well, keep in touch. I'm going to hop off. Take good care, everyone.
Bye, Amy.
Bye.
Well, and this leads perfectly into our next section, which is the Supreme Court, and why it's so important.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. Bye.
So right now, I'm sure you all have seen that Judge Jackson Brown has been meeting with senators last week and this week. Hearings will start next Monday. And so that is when we will really need to be paying attention, because who knows what she is going to be asked. If she's going to be asked for LSATs, anything that no other judge has been asked for. So this is a great resource. This has been put out by a coalition of organizations working on the Supreme Court. And so it has great calls to action, whether it's calling your senators, urging them to confirm how to write letters to the editor, sharing on social media, and talking about the issues of why the Supreme Court matters. So next week, the Senate Judiciary Committee is going to start hearings. That will start on March 21st. This is kind of a chance for the public to actually hear from the nominee and an opportunity to watch how the senators respond, to hold them accountable or to thank them. This will last multiple days. After the hearing, is done, the committee will vote. Now, there has been a lot of misinformation around this, that if the committee is tied, you need 60 votes to move forward. That is not accurate. If the committee is tied, they still only need 51 votes. So the 50 Democrats and Kamala Harris. And then it moves to full cloture vote, which again, we only need 51. And that then starts 30 hours of debate. And the goal is to have the confirmation done by April 9th, because that is when there is now then a 2-week recess. And so a couple important facts here. The Republicans cannot block or hold up this nomination. We learned that back in 2020. So for all of the grandstanding you hear, the Republicans cannot block or hold this confirmation up. We are in charge of the Senate. And the second big thing is we need to really uplift her qualifications. We're seeing a lot of disinformation online, a lot of racist dog whistles. She has more federal experience than Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett combined by 4 years. We're hearing a right-wing narrative that she has had so many decisions overturned. She has rendered over 600 decisions. She has had 2 overturned. And this is the 4th time that she has been confirmed by the United States Senate. Her first time she was confirmed by unanimous consent. So this is really the narrative that we want to push, that she is incredibly well-rounded. She would be the first person to ever be a public defender to sit on the Supreme Court. Obviously the first Black woman. And when she's confirmed, this will be the first time in history that we have 4 women sitting together on the Supreme Court. So, and then of course, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Into Action and their incredible gifts. So here.
They have great stuff.
Here is their link. Yes, there is, Teresa. I will actually find that link for you.
Teresa has asked if there's a source with her credentials.
Yep. And that is what I am pulling up, because of course that is the one tab I didn't have already up. So here is the link that has all of her credentials. It is an incredible fact sheet. And then in that other link that I dropped, they also have a fact sheet in here. There is also a section on holding the media accountable when they're talking about her nomination. There are scripts to the phone banks. So this is a very collaborative effort that's been going on. And there is a group of about 15 organizations that have a rapid response team ready. So as the hearings start, we will be able to clip and get these out on our social media toolkit, so that these clips are out in real time. Do we want to hold off dropping the link to the social media toolkit, or should we drop that tonight?
I think we should drop it tonight.
So we do have an updated social media toolkit for this. There are some video embeds, some GIFs, but it really, and most of these actually link to the fact sheet as well. Because we really want to focus on the facts. And even though it won't change the composition of the Supreme Court, having somebody with such a diversified background could make somebody like Roberts actually stop and think. There's actually precedent for this. When I'm trying to blink on their names. The first woman was appointed.
Sandra Day O'Connor.
Sandra Day O'Connor. It changed the whole dynamics, and she brought a different perspective, and it made people actually stop and think, listening to her side, that, you know what, maybe I was wrong. And so, you know, she may be able to persuade somebody like Amy Coney Barrett, or Kennedy, or even Gorge, that, you know, that maybe they need to rethink their opinions. So, all right, any questions on the Supreme Court?
I just always love RBG's answer about when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court, and she said when there's nine of us.
Yep.
And I 100% agree with that.
And tomorrow would actually be RBG's birthday. So, yes. So we need a woman that will dissent like RBG.
Oh yes, Stacy says when you hear Ted Cruz say Black women are only 6% of the population, tell everybody else that white men are just about 25%, but have held 96% of the Supreme Court justices. Absolutely, you go, girl.
We need to write that one down, Lori. That would actually be a very good tweet.
It will. I'm copying that. Good
Are you
job,
copying that?
Stacy. I am. Copying it right now.
We're gonna steal your food, Stacy. We're definitely are going to add that to a tweet, because I actually had not heard that. As many calls, I've not had anybody bring up that stat, and that is a fabulous stat.
Love it.
So we will probably have a tweet storm scheduled for next Monday, when the hearings start. So be on a lookout for that, and let's get this done. Let's make some history.
Let's do it. All right. I think that's wrapping up early for tonight. We appreciate all of you for joining us.
I don't know if anyone can see, but on that picture is RBG, who looks over my house on a daily basis. So
you couldn't have a better person looking over.
I have RBG on one side and I have John Lewis on the other.
There you go. There you go. All right. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
See you out in the Twitter sphere.